Since the very dawn of consciousness, we as a species have been trying to impose some kind of order on the chaos. We built frameworks to explain everything: the movement of the heavens, the workings of our own minds, the shape of our societies. We're always searching for patterns, for an underlying logic. But what if the ideal frameworks we imagine, these beautiful ideas of perfect unity and interconnectedness, and the concrete structures we actually build, are moving in fundamentally opposite directions? In this explainer, we're going to explore that very divide, the gap between the cosmic unity we seem to seek and the fragmented reality we so often end up creating. We'll begin our inquiry with this profound proposition. It's asking us to consider that reality isn't just a random collection of stuff, of matter and energy, but a coherent, living system. And that word, teleological, is really the key. It suggests that the universe has an inherent purpose, a final goal that it's developing towards. Imagine that for a moment. What if everything, from the tiniest particle to the most massive galaxy, was truly and meaningfully connected? This idea of a purposeful, unified cosmos, that's our starting point. That's our ideal. So here's the journey we're about to take. First, we're going to explore this beautiful, ancient ideal of a unified cosmos. Then, we'll shift gears and look at the rigid, logical architectural knowledge that we humans use to make sense of things. From there, we'll see where that architecture actually leads us in the real world, to a reality that is, starkly divided. And finally, we'll ask the big question: can humanity act as the bridge to close that gap? Or perhaps must we? Okay, let's really immerse ourselves in this vision of total synthesis. This is a worldview that proposes that everything, from the laws of physics to the deepest stirrings of the human soul, is ultimately part of one single, coherent, and deeply meaningful whole. Now, the very core of this worldview is captured in the Latin term Unus Mundus, which just means one world. The great psychologist Carl Jung was absolutely fascinated by this concept, this idea of a singular underlying reality from which the entire messy, differentiated world of our experience comes forth. You can almost think of it as the source code for the universe, a kind of transcendent reality where the usual distinctions we make between mind and matter or psyche and physics simply dissolve into a place of ultimate unity. And this is where we see a crucial tension in how that unity gets expressed. The thinker Viktor Schauberger argued that nature and humanity operate on two completely different geometric principles. He said that nature uses what he called living geometry, the dynamic, evolving spirals and curves we see everywhere, in galaxies, in seashells, in the way a plant grows. This geometry is open, it's creative, it's always transforming. But humanity, on the other hand, we prefer dead geometry, the perfect, rigid, predictable straight lines and circles of our cities and our machines. So you have one that's open and growing, and the other that's closed and static. Right here, we find the core conflict, this organic, natural unity versus our artificial, imposed structure. And maybe the most famous symbol for this deep drive toward unity is the mandala. For Carl Jung, this wasn't just some pretty piece of art. It was a map of the psyche. It's a representation of our innate, profound desire to find our center, to bring all the scattered and conflicting pieces of ourselves together into a coherent, balanced whole. It's the human soul trying to mirror the order of the cosmos. In a way, it's a personal blueprint of that Unus Mundus we were just talking about. Okay, so we have this ideal of an intuitive, almost mystical cosmic unity. But how do we humans actually try to build knowledge in our modern world? We're going to pivot now to a very, very different approach, the world of rational, methodical, and completely linear structures. This quote from German academic guidelines, it really says it all, doesn't it? Forget the intuitive spirals of nature. The goal here is logic, order, and transparency. This is the dead geometry we just discussed, but now it's being applied to knowledge itself. It values what can be measured, what can be categorized, what can be laid out in a perfectly straight line. It is incredibly precise, it is very powerful, and it's the main way we build our modern intellectual world. And here is what that structured approach looks like in practice. This isn't an organic, flowing spiral. It's a factory assembly line for creating knowledge. Each step is logical, it's separate from the others, and it moves in a straight line toward a final finished product. Now, it's efficient, for sure, but it is the complete and total opposite of that interconnected, holistic cosmos we started with. One is a web of relationships, the other is a single, isolated line. So we've established a kind of tension between two models, right? The integrated web of the cosmos on one hand and the structured line of human reason on the other. Now we have to test this idea.
If our main methods for structuring the world are in fact linear and fragmenting, what should we expect to see when we apply them to an entire society? Well, the hypothesis would be, quite simply, division. So let's now turn to a case study.
A recent report from the German Economic Institute gives us a perfect, if troubling, example. A massive project designed to connect and modernize an entire country, digitalization, is not in fact unifying it. Instead, after 5 years of structured, methodical implementation, it seems to be creating and even reinforcing a persistent divide.
The data is pretty stark. Between 2020 and 2024, the digitalization index for the Eastern German states, the former German Democratic Republic, grew by a pretty modest 7.3%. This is progress, of course, but the pace is noticeably slow.
Now, compare that to the southern states during the exact same period. They saw a growth of 22.2%. The really crucial point here isn't just that there's a gap, but that the gap is actively getting bigger. The system isn't moving towards balance or unity, it's moving towards greater and greater divergence. And this graph tells the whole story. Just look at how the lines for the South and the East are not coming together. They're actively pulling further apart. Remember the mandala, that ancient symbol of integration, of finding a center? This is its precise opposite. This is a portrait of fragmentation. Our structured, methodical progress isn't creating wholeness. It is literally drawing diverging lines on a map, creating very clear winners and very clear losers. So, all of this brings us to our final and I think most crucial inquiry. We've seen this profound chasm open up between the ideal of a unified cosmos and the measured reality of a divided society. Is there any way to reconcile them? What is humanity's role in this great drama? Let's go back to where we began. Those same esoteric texts offer a different and much more profound role for our species. They suggest that humanity isn't just a passive observer, nor are we some random accident of biology. Instead, we are a cosmic bridge form, a living bridge gifted with consciousness and meant to connect the structured material world we build with the unified, meaningful cosmos that is our source. And if you look at it from this perspective, our most pressing modern crises, they're the direct and predictable result of choosing the wrong kind of geometry. We have embraced the explosive outward centrifugal forces of the straight line and the machine, while at the same time abandoning the inward, unifying centripetal forces of nature's spiral. We have, in essence, consistently chosen the path of fragmentation over the path of integration. And so this leaves us with a profound paradox. It seems we hold this incredible potential, this destiny to serve as the bridge between a unified cosmos and the world we actually live in. And yet, from our methods of creating knowledge to our grandest plans for engineering society, our frameworks so often lead to more and more division. The final question, then, isn't whether we can build a bridge, but why. So very often, we instead choose to build walls.